welcome to the program.
Thank you, Christiane. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's great, particularly at this time, because you will admit that there is reason to worry in emerging markets with this currency sort of hit that's happened over the last few days.
It's very clear that we're facing an increasing risk aversion surrounding our emerging markets. The events of last week make it very clear. And as long as this risk aversion remains, it's risk aversion regarding the uncertainty of the tapering from the Federal Reserve, the events in China, what's going to happen to the growth in China, all these events create uncertainty and increase risk aversion. But we are firmly convinced that it's going to be the fundamentals in the economies that will differentiate across the emerging markets class.
So why do you think Mexico, as you said to a group in Davos, why do you think Mexico is going to be able to, as you said, weather this storm?
Two things. We have better fundamentals in our macroeconomic management, and we have a strong reform agenda that will foster growth for the next years to come. On the stronger fundamentals, take the current account deficit. We are a country that has a very small current account deficit, slightly over 1%, whereas Turkey or other countries have close to 6 or 7%. Even Brazil has double of our current account deficit. We have a low debt-to-GDP ratio. We have a strong banking system, better capitalized than the European banks or the US banks. So we have a stable inflation. So we are a country with better fundamentals. And of course, President Peña's reform agenda is pushing the prospects for growth and creating good expectations.
So before I get to that reform agenda, let me ask you, you do also feel that, I mean, you'll suffer some blowback from this. What kind of pitfalls do you think lie ahead for you?
Well, Mexico is a country with strong fundamentals, but we're still an emerging economy. Right. Very open, fully integrated to the financial markets, and very open to trade. It's natural that we face some volatility. But again, our fundamentals are strong, and we believe we can weather the storm certainly better than other emerging market economies.
I think everybody took a great big gasp when they saw you announce, or it was announced during the Davos meeting, that a group of major companies have basically pledged a $7 billion investment in your country.
You know, foreign direct investment is much less volatile to market jitters. Okay. And what we are seeing is the good prospects of growth for the Mexican economy, supported by a strong reform agenda, structural reform agenda, are creating opportunities for foreign direct investment in many sectors of the economy. We saw technology announcements from Cisco. We saw good announcements from, I shouldn't be saying brands, I know that, but we are getting.
I mean, there's a whole load of companies.
A lot of companies,
right? PepsiCo, Nestle, Cisco, as you said.
Exactly. Those are, and those are only a few companies. These are very different sectors, but the common denominator is that Mexico is attracting attention because of its growth prospects.
Well, before I get to the good news, I just want you to tackle some of the bad news, because it is extraordinary for us to see this amazing amount of investment, not because you're not doing the reforms, you are, but because of the violence that still exists there. I mean, we know that over the last, year, for the third time, the president was forced to dispatch the army to one of your western states, which has practically been paralyzed and held hostage by the bad guys. Are you not concerned that the inability to rein in the violence, which has systematically plagued your country, might have sort of a knock-on effect on investors?
Obviously, security is a top priority for Enrique Peña Nieto's government. Let me share some facts with you, Christiane. The homicide rate has decreased 16% since the government started. Homicides related to organized crimes are down 30%. Some cities that were experiencing severe violence, like Ciudad Juárez in the border, or even the city of Monterrey, have shown significant decreases in violence. We have a problem in the state of Michoacán, and the president has taken bold steps by removing all police forces or local police forces, substituting by federal forces, sending a special commissioner for what? To reestablish the rule of law. This is a long, complex problem that is particularly focalized in this state, and the president is taking the actions necessary, as I said, to reestablish the rule of law.
And as you said, this is going to be a long crisis, but in the meantime, you are doing these reforms. What are the most significant? We keep looking at the oil sector. We've said that, it hasn't been privatized for practically its whole existence, more than 70 years. How important is that, and are you able to see that through?
Why is the reform agenda happening? Because we want to increase growth, and we want to do it by making easier to make business in Mexico, to make the Mexican economy more productive, reducing the cost of energy, reducing the electricity bills by small companies, by Mexican families, by reducing the cost of lending. We have very strong banks that lend very little. We made a financial reform for that, a telecommunications reform. We need more competition in our telecom industry. We need the access to the internet, the access to information technology to be of better quality and cheaper. That's why President Peña pushed forward a telecommunications reform, antitrust reform. We need more competition in our in our economy overall. These are reforms such as the labor reform to bring flexibility into the labor market, or the very important education reform to increase the quality of our schools. These are all reforms that have one single common denominator, which is productivity. We need to increase productivity to increase growth and the well-being of Mexicans.
And you put your finger on my next question, the well-being of Mexicans. We stated that some 60 million Mexicans, nearly half the country, live in what's officially declared poverty. Are they seeing the results of these reforms? Could some of these reforms, paradoxically, hurt them to an extent? Certain taxes, certain things that affect their buying ability. I
was in Davos last week, and there was a lot of talk about income inequality, but I think there is not enough talk of productivity inequality. And this is exactly what President Peña wants to do. He talks a lot about democratization of productivity. That means bringing productivity, which is the only sustainable way to improve income to all regions of the country and to all sectors of the economy. We have a world-class exporting manufacturing industry linked to NAFTA, but we have regions of the country that are poor, and by these reforms, I mean that will reduce the cost of production across the economy. Again, all these reforms are trying to reduce the cost of inputs to the overall economy, to increase productivity, and therefore increase real wages, not only for a few exporting sectors, but for the overall economy.
Luis Videgaray, thank you very much indeed for joining me.
Thank you, Christiane. It's a real pleasure.